They say the higher you soar, the harder you fall. In the world of crypto, that lesson was written in bold when Sam Bankman-Fried, once hailed as the wunderkind of digital finance, stood in a Manhattan courtroom, his empire in ruins and his reputation shattered. What had looked like a meteoric rise became crypto's biggest scandal. And in that courtroom, the drama of billions in losses, guilt, denial, and betrayal played out in front of the world. Samuel Benjamin Bankman-Fried, SBF to millions, was born in 1992 in Stanford, California. He studied at MIT, launched into crypto, and founded FTX, a cryptocurrency exchange that at its peak was among the most prominent platforms globally. He also founded Alameda Research, a trading firm closely tied to FTX. At his apex, SBF was lauded not just as a billionaire entrepreneur, but as a visionary who would lead crypto into a more responsible, more regulated future. He positioned himself as an idealist, someone who believed in effective altruism and pledged to funnel enormous wealth into solving big world problems. All of that made his fall all the more shocking. Late in 2022, cracks began to appear. Users rushed to withdraw funds. Questions grew about FTX's solvency. Then the leak Alameda's balance sheets showed huge exposure, massive losses, and shaky backing. FTT, FTX's own token used as collateral, was overleveraged. Panic spread, and FTX filed bankruptcy in November 2022. At that moment, the public saw not a fast-rising star, but a house of cards collapsing. On December 12, 2022, Bankman-Fried was arrested in the Bahamas and extradited to the U.S. He was charged with multiple counts including wire fraud, securities and commodities fraud, and money laundering. The indictment painted a chilling picture that he had misused billions of dollars of customer funds deposited into FTX, funneled them to Alameda, used the money to make investments, pay debts, political donations and real estate purchases, all while misleading users, investors, and regulators about the safety of customer funds. The trial began on October 3, 2023, in the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York, before Judge Lewis A. Kaplan. Prosecutors laid out a portrait of a mastermind who engineered a long-running fraud. They accused him of altering FTX's computer code so that Alameda could withdraw effectively unlimited amounts of cryptocurrency, manipulating accounting, backdating documents, inflating profits, and making false statements to banks and investors. Key among the evidence was testimony by Insider's co-founder Gary Wang and former Alameda CEO Caroline Ellison, who both pleaded guilty and cooperated with prosecutors. They revealed the internal mechanics of how customer deposits were diverted. Prosecution's opening statements were blunt. Bankman-Fried had built an illusion over years telling users their deposits were safe, that FTX kept them separate from operating funds, and that Alameda was a separate entity. Those claims, prosecutors argued, were lies. In reality, funds moved freely between FTX and Alameda, enabling Alameda to gamble, cover losses, or speculate with customer money. The unmasking of that transfer network was central to the case. The defense painted a different story. They argued SBF was a math nerd, driven by ambition but not malice. He claimed he believed the internal practices, using customer deposits for Alameda, investing and covering losses, were not disallowed by contractual terms or laws. According to them, he was inexperienced, overworked, overly idealistic, and not a villain. He insisted he never intended to defraud anyone. After a 5-week trial, the case went to the jury on November 2, 2023, who deliberated for 5 hours before returning a verdict, guilty on all 7 counts. SBF had been convicted of 2 counts of wire fraud conspiracy, 2 counts of wire fraud, 1 count of conspiracy to commit commodities fraud, conspiracy to commit securities fraud, and conspiracy to commit money laundering. The verdict signified one of the largest financial fraud convictions in United States history involving cryptocurrency. In his sentencing on March 28, 2024, Judge Kaplan didn't mince words. He sentenced Bankman-Fried to 25 years behind bars, plus 3 years of supervised release, and ordered forfeiture of more than $11 billion for restitution. Kaplan chastised SBF's refusal to fully accept responsibility, noting he knew what he was doing was wrong and framed the scheme as a calculated deception. In court, SBF offered apologies to customers and employees but stopped short of admitting criminal intent. He vowed to appeal, while the judge noted that restitution claims were speculative and insufficient to reduce sentencing. The collapse was not just financial, it was human. Hundreds of thousands of ordinary users lost money, some their life savings. Heartbreaking victim statements were submitted describing sleepless nights, ruined plans, and lives upended. The courtroom became a stage where tech's unchecked ambition collided with broken trust. Beyond Sam Bankman-Fried, the scandal exposed friends, confidants, and co-founders who played roles. Caroline Ellison, who was once his romantic and business partner, testified against him, admitted guilt, and agreed to cooperate. Ellison was later sentenced to 2 years in prison and forfeited assets. Gary Wang, FTX's co-founder and the engineer behind some of the accounting code, also pled guilty and testified. Their cooperation, honestly, revealed the internal financial architecture that made this multi-billion-dollar scam possible. The trial reignited debates around crypto regulation, oversight, and, well, the culture of handing billionaires unchecked power. It became a symbol of what happens when hype, trust, and innovation mix without accountability. The crypto market, already volatile, reeled. Critics cited FTX as proof that the sector needed tougher rules, while advocates warned that excessive regulation might stifle innovation. Either way, the case became a reference point. Crypto could no longer claim to be untouchable. One dramatic piece of evidence was a Google Doc memo created by Sam Bankman-Fried on November 7, 2022, which, contradicted public assurances. Internally, the memo projected FTX could only process 1/3 of remaining customer assets, noting an $8.1 billion shortfall. Another turning point was Gary Wang's admission that he hard-coded an exception allowing Alameda a negative balance, enabling withdrawals beyond what normal users could access. Those revelations really undercut claims of naivety, showing deliberate design. So, even before the sentencing, prosecutors were already pushing for a harsher punishment. Some were asking for, get this, 40 to 50 years in prison. They cited the scale of the fraud, the numerous victims, and SBF's lack of full responsibility. On the other side, defense lawyers fired back, calling such demands grotesque. They argued that SBF was a first-time nonviolent offender, and that while his intentions were flawed, they weren't evil. In the end, Judge Kaplan leaned toward severity, handing down a sentence of 25 years. SBF's conviction marks a real turning point. It's a clear signal that in the world of crypto, innovation just can't replace ethics and oversight. When billions are on the line, the consequences ripple far and wide, affecting trust in technologies, investor confidence, and even the regulatory frameworks we rely on. In court, a man who once mingled with political donors, tech moguls, and media stars stood in handcuffs. His parents, Stanford law academics, watched heartbroken. His media persona, once optimistic, now contrasted with criminal guilt. Even in statements, SBF expressed regret while insisting not all actions were illegal and vowed to appeal. That balance of contrition without full admission revealed how deep the tragedy was. As the gavel fell and SBF was led away, the courtroom echoed with loss. Billions lost, trust shattered, futures altered. The loudest echo oversight and accountability must follow. Crypto's biggest scandal was not just cryptocurrency's downfall, it was a stark lesson that the rules of finance, honesty, and law apply to all. Now as Sam Bankman-Fried enters the sentence phase of his life, the world watches not just his appeal, but how crypto reacts, how regulators respond, and whether this scandal forges a new era of accountability or becomes a cautionary footnote. So here's where you come in. This story is for every investor, every dreamer, every person tempted by fast money or disruption. Know the red flags, demand transparency, don't let hype replace evidence. Even in cutting-edge finance, human motives, greed, trust, and betrayal hold sway. If you want to stay informed about the trial's appeals, uncovered evidence, and lessons from crypto's boom, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. This isn't just a scandal, it's a story still unfolding. Whenever the next twist comes, we'll be right here to break it down with you.